Here we go, the 33rd country, Israel. So before I went to Israel, I know nothing about Israel. So from Jordan, I crossed the Hossein Bridge to enter to Israel. I still remembered when I was queuing for past the immigration. There are like two young people. They were very friendly, and then they just told me, "Oh, welcome to Palestine." And I feel so weird because, wow, isn't I'm going to Israel? Why they say that? Because they are like Jordania, but they also have an Israeli residential car. So at that time, I feel confused. But of course, nowadays I understand a little bit more. And then luckily I don't request a visa for Israel, but due to the political stuff, it's just a separate paper that allow them to stamp on that instead of a stamp on my passport, because just for my ongoing journeys, for my convenience. And after I got my passport stamped and then to pass the security check, it's one of the most strict one. It's like similar as the airport one. You have to remove everything from yourself, earrings, watches, and so on. And after I crossed the border, I found there's like a minibus to Jerusalem. So while waiting for the bus, I asked for some hot water for my cup noodles, and the ticket seller just invited me to enter the office, and they gave me hot water and a table to allow me to eat in. Then on the way to Jerusalem, there were so many security checkpoints, and mostly were administrated by the Israel females armies. And then also I noticed the road sign. It says like this area is for Palestinian. If Israeli resident go in, it's risky. And then after I arrived, I needed to take the public transportation to make to my host's place, because I was doing couchsurfing. And I remembered I asked someone for direction, and then I said thank you in Arabic, and then that person just asked me where I'm from, why I can speak Arabic. But I just told her, okay, I only know how to say thank you. Perhaps that person is like it's like a Jewish or something like that. And my host hosted me for a couple of days. He works in the newspaper place, so like every day he gets the news in first hand. So during my stay there, actually there's a news about some Arabic people came to where the Jewish people pray and killed someone. Actually, when I first arrived, I feel it's like from the surface it's very peace, and actually deeply, silently, quietly every day something happened. Let's say in the capital, on the tramway, there's like a square stone, big one on the side. My host told me that was to prevent some people just for purpose driving to hit people or hit the tramway and something like that. So and then I went to the Dead Sea for sure, but something very funny is I didn't float. That was really funny. And then after I came back from the Dead Sea to Jerusalem, I did a hitchhike. And I still remember when I came back, and after my my clothes is dry from the Dead Sea. Oh, it's all salt. And my host lived with his roommate. His roommate cooked me some traditional Israeli food like shashuga, and also they told me something about kosher, about their food. And then I went to the sightseeing, and then one Jewish musician played the piano for me. It was really beautiful. And yeah, it was just roughly in Jerusalem. And after that, I took a bus to Eliat and trying to make my way to Egypt. So the next time when I come back to Israel, I would love to visit Palestine and Tel Aviv and so on, with much more information after I read the Bible. So when I disembarked from Israel, I also asked them to stamp on my paper instead of my passport. So I entered into Egypt from Taba border, and after I entered, the officer told me I can't do solo travel in Egypt from this border. I have to get a guide. So in the beginning, I feel like so weird because I have been solo traveling in so many other countries. It was my very first time to hear this. So in the beginning, I don't feel like to follow this. I want to double check with my embassy, but they are not willing to help me to call my embassy. And after that, the officer became pissed off. He just threw my passport on the floor. So I know I can't try to fight with him, so I have to be gentle, okay? So I just followed his way, and then after that, he got me a guy, and then I need to pay some tour guide fee, we negotiate. And after that, I asked them for not stamping my passport, because otherwise, if in the future I travel to other countries, they might notice that I entered into Egypt from Taba, which means I have been to Israel, something like this. So the officer followed, and after that day, my plan was make my way to Cairo, but for some reason they won't allow me to take the bus, because I thought they were just like they just tried to rip tourists off. But I tried to take the bus, but eventually I got stopped by the police, and then they sent me back to the border, and then they get the big boss of the immigration office to talk to me. So I talked to the officer, and it ends up that big boss of the immigration officer helped me to hitchhike a private car, get me to Cairo for free. But on the way, like, some other people tried to stop me, and then so the immigration officer came out again to help me. And then so it ends up even I paid for the tour guide fee, but so it's like the same money if I take the public transport to Cairo. And in Cairo, I stayed like for more than 10 days, because I was also applying for the visa to Sudan, and I was being told that I have to have a reference letter from my embassy, but my embassy told me they don't issue that anymore. And then I was being told that if in that case I can't apply for the Sudan as visa. So I was like very worried, and then I came to my embassy again. And then I was even crying because I explained my plan, have to travel from Egypt overland to South Africa, so I have to get the Sudan visa. Eventually, my embassy helped me to call the Sudan embassy, and then they finally issued me a visa. And I stayed in Cairo, went to the pyramid, and after that I took a train to Aswan, and then from Aswan I made my way to Sudan. And then in Cairo I was adopted by a local